going out there tonight?
Well, you stumped me now.
Check out our website, mannimalresearch.com. Thanks to everybody. Hello. How's it going out there tonight, everybody? Episode 100. Glad you guys could make it out, hang out with us tonight. As you can see, joined by my partner in crime there, Mr. Derek Jasper Walls, is using some tongs to scratch his face. I really don't know what's going on there. But what's up, buddy?
I got some new tools to scratch my butt with.
Man, remind me never to eat salad at your house.
I'm not at home.
Where you at?
North Carolina.
Remind me never to travel with you then.
Why not? We use these for hot dogs.
You also use them to scratch your butt.
Yeah. Smells good.
What are you doing in North Carolina?
Well, the girls wanted to come up and see snow because we don't hardly get it down there. So, and came up here and figured got a room at the casino up here and hanging out, watching the snow.
Is it snowing?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's snowing.
Could have stayed home and seen snow.
Yeah. Not real snow, not like this over here.
It's not snowing here. It's raining.
Yeah. If I can figure out how to turn the camera around. I don't have a camera. No, I got to figure it out. Shut up over here. Here you go. I did bring my laptop, so.
Well, why ain't you? You got us at the casino.
I don't know. Can you see out there? Or is it blurry?
Yeah, it's snowing. Hey, are y'all the only ones there?
No. There's a bunch of other people here.
Parking lot was empty.
That's the backside. Or actually the front side. Everybody's on the backside over here.
Let's see who we got hanging out with us tonight. Mr. Scott Bean, what's up, buddy? Jody J. Sandra Piper, how are you doing, ma'am? Trusty Sandra, she's here every week.
Yep.
Our Facebook viewers, Mr. Greg, what's up, buddy? G-Man Crawford, there he is. You say Bobby?
Yeah, Bobby's here.
Where's he at? There's Flat Rock.
He was right before Sandra and all them.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Bobby saying hi, Wayne.
Hey, there's Bobby. How's it going, Bobby? I hope you're feeling better, bud. I ain't talked to you in a while. Hope you're doing better. All right, what's been going on with you, man? You and Greg got out to the battlefield.
Yeah,
didn't you?
Yeah, we went Friday. We actually went out Friday night. Kelsey was off, and actually took a bunch of the kids that actually stayed with the girls and went out there and had some pretty interesting things. Got a couple of pictures of possible tree structures that Greg took me to that actually he found a couple weeks ago. That one there is probably the better one, I would say, because it's just laid right in there, and it's jammed in there, and there's nothing above it because it came from something else. So
how high off the ground is that?
Well, I'm 5'9", and
midget.
Yeah, pretty much. But we couldn't reach it. So I'd say, give or take, I'd say it could have been about 8, possible 9 foot. It was up there.
Yeah, that's odd.
Yeah.
You'd think the wind was blowing hard enough to blow a limb out of a tree that it wouldn't land perfectly in the middle there and balance itself, but I guess stranger things have happened.
Oh yeah. It was a solid piece of limb too. It was a pretty good sized limb, but I would think, falling straight in there would have split in two at least. But it didn't. It's just laid in there.
It's hard to tell what's going on there.
That one, the one where it looks like you see the triangle, that's one tree going. I believe that one was Mother Nature that fell because the limb that's going on the other side, it actually is snapped off from that other piece. and formed a perfect triangle there. Now, the one that's going straight up, that is another one that looks like it's been placed. It's not even part of any one of the trees around there. There's no butts to it, no ends to them. But it's in the same area where that one that busted, and you would think that would have snapped too. How long that's still sticking out there. I mean, it was pretty good. And we also, that's where if I recall, that's where I was telling you we saw the two eye shines off to the left from that tree right there, which we knew it was possible deer because we'd hear them walking. And then a few minutes later, we hear like something grab the deer by its throat. I mean, just, all you hear was, that was it. It was like, either the deer got choked on something on grass or something grabbed it. Had to. And we did find coyotes prints. Greg did mention, he said, well, coyotes do go after him, which that's true, but them being so small, I would think we'd hear more of a struggle with a coyote hitting the throat like that. You know, you got these big creatures that are Bigfoots or dogmen or whatever can wrap around the neck of a deer or a doe. You pretty much choke it out, you know. But it's just, when we did get it, we went to the other thing was we went back, when we was coming back towards the tower. We had the ghost thing going on. We had the little app going on and everything. And mine, and had one of the girls that was sitting next to me. It comes up actually right across from the area where where we was in the woods from the tower, and it comes up saying throat. I was like, okay, well, out of the blue, she goes, you cut the throat. It came back gentle or gently. I was like, okay, that's crazy. So he's like, I said, it's probably just random things. And the next word that came out was actually two words. It said, believe her. And we was like, okay, that's weird. All right. So we had that. We went to the spot where one of our fellow persons that was attacked, Mr. Darrell. Went back there checking out things. I've been going back there several times. Theories, trying to figure out, pinpoint, trying to wrap my head around it still. So we, on the way back now, that's where we did get a howl. I don't think it was a Bigfoot howl, but it was something as a big canine howl. And I'm not saying coyote. I'm going to say it was almost like a wolf sound, because it had a deep voice to it, and it was a perfect howl. I mean, it's one of those where you hear it and you're like a deer in headlights. It's, what was that?
Did you say you think it was canine?
Oh yeah, this was something big that was out there. And it was in the same area where we was at before, where we heard that deer or something get choked. From where we went and where Darrell supposedly got attacked. It was further off in that way, but it was a pure clear night. No fog. There was a little bit of deers here and there, but it was a clear night. Moon was out. Moon had a ring around it. Yeah, it was that scary. It was pretty got a thing. Then we actually went to the spot where I heard when we had a live here, and I had that something talk in my ear, and we caught it on something on the phone. We went and checked that place out again, and did 2 tree knocks and a whistle. The first tree knock was where the camera picked it up. Me and Greg didn't hear it, and the girls were outside near the trucks away from us. So they was probably 30 feet, 40 feet away from us, and they were near the trucks. So we were in the woods a little deep in there. He makes the first knock. We don't think we hear nothing. We go back, and they all are freaked out like, hey, we heard something. We heard some type of faint scream. I was like, okay. And then Greg asked them, said, hey, was it with the tree knocks? And they said it was right after your first tree knock. Well, I went back to the video, and you can faintly hear a small scream coming from behind, out from the area where they were pointing at. And I'm like, well, at least we caught it. We caught the scream. It's like a faint, like a wind carrying this scream. It's eerie, but we caught it. We did get it on audio.
There's something going on out there in that battlefield.
Oh
And
God, dude,
it's,
you got
even
everything out there.
before, even before I was really into the investigation of Bigfoot, cryptids, and stuff, anytime I'd go out there, I'd get a weird feeling. So
Yep.
there's something going on out there. I mean, it's too bad that you can't really do any overnight investigations in there. But I mean, you can go out there at nighttime. You have, and I guess stay for a few hours. That's pretty much about the same thing as doing a full nighttime. But
As long as you keep moving, you're fine. And we had one last thing before we left. We went to the bridge. It's just called Alexander Bridge, and it's supposed to be the tale. There is a woman supposed to have lost her baby, and the key is you're supposed to go on the bridge, cut the truck off, cut the vehicle off, put it in neutral, just sit there and say, "We have your baby." Well, we did that. Nothing happened. So we went down where a pull off is. We pulled off. Me, Kelsey, and Greg walked back to the bridge on foot. And this is one of those things where you talk about, you don't think about taking your camera, you don't think about taking your phone, didn't think nothing was going to happen. We get up there and we get right at the line where the bridge starts. Didn't say one thing. Off to we were facing, like I'm facing straight, right to our left, off in the woods there, we hear this, hey, hey, hey. And we're like, dude, what world is that? That sounds like a kid.
that's creepy.
Oh, man. I was like, okay, let's go back and get the spotlight.
I've been to that Alexander Bridge, and I never heard the baby one. I had heard about hearing Confederate horses and soldiers riding their horses under the bridge, and you cut your car off and your lights, and you sit there. That eventually you'll hear what sounds like horses running underneath you, and done all that. Nothing really happened, but
Yeah.
everywhere's got those urban legends and things like that. I mean, they're fun. It's fun to do that kind of stuff, but you got to think, man. Those things started somewhere. Somebody experienced something to get those legends started. Anyway, we're 13 minutes in, man. We ain't even got our guest on tonight. We are very, very honored and pleased to welcome Mr. Philip Pope Palmer, Triple P, to the broadcast. Going to have him on here in just a couple minutes. Before we get him on, I want to ask everybody to hit that subscribe button. If you have not done so, turn on your notifications so you can get notified when we have new episodes. Also, if you're on Facebook and if you're breathing, you're more than likely you're on Facebook. Go run over to Mannimal Research on Facebook and join our group. Be happy to have you. We're up over 1,200 members on there now, so yeah, still growing. Also, like I said, got Philip on tonight. If you guys have any questions for Philip, be sure to ask them. But if you do ask a question, make sure you put those in all caps for us, please. That's one of Wall's focuses during these shows is to keep an eye on the chat. Make sure you guys stay in line. And also, he looks for all caps to get the questions over to me so that I can get them on for you guys. Philip knows to be expecting questions, so if you guys have any, fire them away, and we will do our best to get them on. And one more thing before we bring Mr. Philip on, I found you guys have been asking me for over a year, probably close to 2 years now. I've almost been doing it for 2 years. When we were going to get decals and T-shirts made up. Well, we took that first step today. I actually went and picked up our decals, our first decals. Here it is. If you guys can see that, we got this in 4 colors. Obviously, that's black. We got gold, silver, and white. And I think they turned out really, really good, guys. I got one on my computer right now. I'm going to put one on the car. The wife's going to put one on hers. And and send some to a few of our members. But guys, if y'all want to pick them up, be happy to get them to you so y'all can get them on your car. We're going to sell them for $6. Not making a whole lot of money off of that. We're making a little bit, but anything we make goes toward our research to fund future expeditions and new equipment and stuff like that. If you want one, you can either hit me up on Facebook or you can email either of us. You can throw Walls's email up right there.
I check that daily now. I don't get no emails. Nobody talks to me.
No, I mean, I haven't been getting a whole lot. Y'all, Walls is being lonely. Y'all send him some emails. Please. Walls' email, and then y'all can get me at the Mannimal Research at yahoo.com. So, yeah, hope you guys will come out and buy some of those decals. I want to send a shout out to my buddy Jerry at work. He has just started his new business doing decals and shirts, and he's getting ready to put us some shirts together. So we're going to have those ready to get out to you guys too. But yeah, the decals are here, and I think they turned out real well. So appreciate if you guys would pick 1 or 2 or 10 up. All right. All of that out of the way. Like I was saying, we got Mr. Phillip on ready to come on. He's backstage ready to go. If you're ready, buddy, we'll bring him on.
Yeah, well, one last thing. I don't know if you've seen on Facebook. A lot of y'all know Janice Carter. She's actually home with her daughter that's sick, that tested positive for COVID. If y'all just say a prayer for them and that she gets fights through that and gets back out there. And she's young, so she should have some pretty good strength in her. But to give her a little extra help is.
Yeah, I clicked over on Facebook a minute ago while we were on, and I saw that Janice had posted something like that. I wasn't able to comment or anything, but yeah, say a prayer for Miss Holly, Janice's daughter. We've had Janice on a few times, been out in the woods with her and Holly on expeditions, had Holly on as well. Yeah, so COVID's not fun. I'm sure she's not feeling real well, so say a prayer for Miss Holly if you don't mind. Glad you brought that up, bud.
Yep.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Phillip, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how you doing, Wayne? Jasper? You go by Jasper?
That's fine.
Calling you something else a minute ago. So
I call him Walls.
Walls, okay.
Well, yeah, it's his last name. We actually, Walls and I met. We were corrections officers.
Okay.
And they're I don't know if you know anything about that. You can't call
I had
your
a
person
woman get in my ear about it. Sounds like a rough job.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. Walls hung in there longer than I did. It was not for me. So I left pretty quick. But you can't call your fellow officers and other employees by their first name. Everybody goes by their last name. So I got used to calling them Walls. So that's what I've always called them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, don't forget, I also knocked you out of work for a while too.
I faked that.
Really?
I wanted time off. Oh yeah, I wanted time
really?
off.
Okay.
Yeah. I call him Gooberhead too. So if y'all call him Gooberhead, he answers to Gooberhead. How's it going, Phillip? How you doing? You were down near Savannah, Georgia, correct?
Yeah. I live in a little town just a few miles south of Savannah proper called Vernonburg, a little historic town on the Vernon River. Beautiful out here. It's just a few miles away from the mall, but you've got every animal you can think of out here, and a lot of woods, and it's really nice out here.
Okay, now how long have you been interested in this topic of Bigfoot, and what started your interest?
So that's, and I'll make it as concise as I can, but that's kind of a 3-part thing. So the first part is when I was a young kid, my parents took me and my twin brother to some movie. I think it was a Robert Redford movie called it escapes me right now. It really does. It's about a pilot who didn't get his combat time in World War I and felt bad about it and yada yada yada. Anyway, back in those days, it wasn't just 30-minute long trailers for a couple hours before you got to the movie. They would do trailers for movies, but they would also do shorts, and they would do cartoons. One that I remember a lot was Mr. Magoo cartoon, but they also did a lot of short documentaries. And there was a short documentary on Bigfoot. First time I'd ever heard of Bigfoot. The very first time I'd seen the Patterson footage. This would have probably been around 73, 74. And I think it's been so long, obviously, that, you know, they definitely had howls and screams in the documentary. I think they may have had I don't remember when those Ohio howls that have gotten so popular were recorded, but there was something like that. And I was just gripped immediately. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. You know, I was scared, but fascinated at the same time. And of course, back at that time, you know, the early 70s, they were mostly trying to paint this thing out to be a kind of bigger than just the upper Northwest, right? But it didn't matter. In my head, I was like, well, wait a minute, North Georgia has mountains. You know, I'm already thinking maybe they're up there, you know, because I'd already been up to the mountains as a kid. And I'm 7 or 8 years old at the time. So that just gripped me. And I got books on UFOs and Bigfoot when I was pretty young. Then I got older, you know, got into being a dude, a teenager and all that stuff, and just hanging out with the guys and trying to date girls and, you know, all that stuff. So they kind of fell out. But then when I moved to Athens, Georgia in '89, really for the music scene. I wasn't going to college up there at UGA. I just wanted to live up in Athens. But I was in my early mid-20s, and I just had this hankering to get a bunch of dudes and start doing the male bonding thing, going and camping, you know, bringing beer and burger meat because you know you won't catch any fish, you know. And we did it. I for like 3 years in a row, around 94, 95, 96, I got rounded up a group of 10 or more guys, some of them from Macon, Georgia, some of them from Savannah, and the rest of us from Athens. And we go down there and go just, you know, camp at Stephen Foster State Park, and on a canoe ride on one of those journeys, my roommate was in the canoe with me. I had a sighting at probably 40 feet, and didn't know how to process it. Didn't know how to, because it wasn't even in my radar anymore. It just happened. So you know how like everybody's like, do you believe? Do you disbelieve? Or do you know? And it's like when something like that happens, and it just takes the belief or the disbelief possibility out of the equation without you having anything to do with it. I stuffed it down. My roommate didn't know how to deal with it. It was totally out of his, you know, we never talked about it again after freaking out in the canoe all the way back to the campsite. That was the last time we talked about it. We rode together about a 6 or 7 hour trip back up to Athens from South Georgia. Never talked about it in the car, never talked about it as roommates. I tucked it away. The interesting thing that got me back into this subject, it was the Rick Dyer hoax in 2008.
I remember that.
My brother called me up going, you got to get on the TV. This guy's found a body in North Georgia. And of course, immediately I'm talking to him on the phone and I'm pulling this thing up and going, I don't know, man. So that's really 2008. That's when it got me back into it.
Now, the buddy of yours that had the sighting, were you with him?
Yeah, he was in the front of the canoe. I was steering.
And you didn't see it?
He saw it. Totally.
You didn't see it.
Oh, we both saw it.
Oh, you saw it. Wow.
Oh, yeah. It was like I said, it was only 40 feet from the bank, and this thing was right at the bank. Oh. You know, there's all these cypress knees and a lot of thicket and all these, you know, and we'd heard the splashing before we saw it. Like we were probably like, let's see, let me do this with my hands. If here's the bank, here's us. When we're parallel to where this thing is, we started, note my hands going down, meaning before we even got parallel to that area, about 80 or 100 feet, we were hearing splashing going on. We couldn't see anything because it was so thick. And so my first thought was maybe an alligator was up in there. And then I went through every large animal I could think of because it was clearly a large animal. Hog, bear, deer. Pretty much it, you know.
Now, again, what river were you on?
There's a lake called Billy's Lake that's off of Stephen Foster Park. This was a tributary off of Billy's Lake. Now, I know at some point there's an area called Minnie's Lake, I don't know where this tributary. The tributary was not far off the lake. We'd gone up a couple miles up the tributary and then come back, and it wasn't long before we were going to be hitting the main lake again when this happened. And it was on. So I'm headed south down, basically south down this lake, headed towards, Billy's Lake, down this tributary. It's on our right. So it was,
Okay.
It's like everybody describes. It was a matter, once we saw what was happening, 10, 15 seconds, I'm trying to recall from 25, 26 years of memory now, but it was enough to where I knew when this thing did what it did, there wasn't a bear. And a hog was out of the question, and a deer was out of the question. It had shoulders. Have you ever seen the Melissa Hobie picture that may or may not be a hoax from Georgia, supposedly from a trail cam?
I might have. I just didn't know what it's called.
It's a clear image of something with the sloped shoulders, the head planted on it. It's not as thickly haired as like the Patty thing. You can see the skin, and it looks like it's got ticks and stuff on it.
No, send me that though.
It could easily be a hoax, but if it is, it's a well done still image hoax from probably 10 years ago. And that's the closest I can get to describing what I saw. I couldn't gauge height. It wasn't some 10-foot mammoth thing, but it was so powerfully built. And like I said, the shoulders, like even bodybuilders, like their shoulders start to look like they're just going, but still
the neck muscles kind of,
and ropey. The rest of what I could see, which just was the upper body, it wasn't like it was patty girthy. It was tapered and was ropey. And I could only speculate at the height, 6.5, 7 feet. I don't know. That's all guesswork.
Did you smell anything?
No, not a thing.
No
the funny thing, it was making all this noise. We didn't see anything, and apparently it was crouched down. I don't know if it was looking for fish or drinking water, but it just stood up. And as it stood up, it just immediately turned its back to us as it stood up. Like it didn't want anything to do with us. Like I think in retrospect, I'm thinking we pissed this thing off. It was probably trying to do something. And then the funny thing is all this commotion it had been making in the water as it walked back into the thicket. Because, in the swamp, y'all ever been to Okefenokee?
I haven't, no.
Even though he's walking away, it's going to be wet forever before he gets to something remotely dry. But the sound just disappeared so quickly. And the thing that so many people I've heard tell when they see these things, the fluidity of its motion, it just looked like it was floating back into the trees. It reminded me of a neighbor I had when I was a teenager. She was an older lady who would jog through the neighborhood, and she wore it was hilarious. She wore a skirt down to her ankles, a dress shirt, and tennis shoes, and she jogged. But she had this way of just looking like she's floating over the concrete, this little hilarious. And that's the best way I can describe it. Even though this thing wasn't going past me like this, it was leaving. There was no up and down motion, It just looked like it was just going back, and it got so silent so quick. That's one of the things that stunned us as much as the sighting itself. Bob and I were in this complete WTF kind of mode. Hey there, buddy. Come real quick and say hello. And then my son wants to say hey. He's too. There you go. Get up there. There you are.
Hey, bud. How's it going?
Hey, Jasper. All right.
Hey.
Give me a kiss.
That's cool.
Go get in bed, buddy. But we knew when we got back to camp, we couldn't say any of this. These guys, how good anybody can be a group of friends. They would have shredded us. It would have been the joke all the rest of the camping trip. So didn't talk about it once. We got to get our freakouts about what did we see. I think it totally threw my roommate off because I was already obviously from early childhood interested in everything from ghosts to UFOs to Bigfoot. Even though that wasn't my focus at that time, it still blew me away. I think for him, it really rocked him. And I tried to find him on Facebook. I can't find him. I'm like, I've always wanted to, Bob, man, do you remember that? What did you see? What do you remember from that day? But I can't find him, and I have some mutual friends, but they don't know how to get to him. So,
that makes so much sense. I've heard one of our old members, his sighting back in the early 80s was just what you described. Him and another buddy were floating down the river in a canoe, and they came up on this thing. And, that kind of sighting makes so much sense to me because I believe personally that a big part of Bigfoot's diet is fish. I believe that they eat a lot of fish because, an animal or whatever these things are that size has to have a lot of protein intake, you would think. And I think fish would be a good way to get that. There's a lot of fish out there in the water. And I'm sure that over the years they've developed, they're pretty good fishermen. So I could see one of these things, down knee deep water, reaching down, trying to fish, making all kind of noise, splashing. And if they're doing that, and if the people in the boats, in the canoe especially, or a kayak, if they're not talking and not making a lot of noise,
the water's glass smooth. We are just moving without a sound through the water. We weren't even paddling hard. We were just cruising.
Yeah, there's nothing to throw up an alarm.
Yeah,
to the Bigfoot. There's no sound. I mean, I guess there's smell. But if they're in an area that other humans frequent, I mean, they could be used to the smell of a human.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And once I'm just guessing it did eventually maybe, and this is all speculation because it's been so long. Maybe the paddle hit the side of the canoe. But I'm thinking something alerted it to us, and that's what caused it to turn up and leave. And it just seemed to me like I didn't, we were probably like I said, about 40 feet away in the center of this little creek or tributary. But I didn't feel any threat at all. I was just blown away by the fact that it was even happening.
Okay. Hey, real quick, Philip, do you know a Tommy Cooper?
Yeah, Tommy Cooper of Cryptovania.
He has a question for you. He says, Triple P, can you name one researcher with better hair than yours?
You. Tommy keeps his head pretty clean, I think. Yeah, I appreciate that. I work on that really hard. Hey, I'll tell you this much real quick. I'm the kind of guy, I'd cut my hair like this and then not cut my hair for 2 years, and I've got it halfway down my back. This is the first time this last year where I cut my hair and I make an appointment for another haircut. I've been doing it about 1.5 years now.
All right.
Yeah.
In a couple of years, you'll be up to a year, right?
Things in life that make, Tommy's got a group called Cryptovania, and y'all should hook up too. He's up in Pittsburgh. Where are y'all? You're Tennessee?
We're in Tennessee and North Georgia.
Okay, he's in Pennsylvania, and I know he gets into some pretty active areas.
Has he ever had any experiences?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Hey, Tommy, hit me up, bud. Let's talk about maybe getting you on to share some of your experiences. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Philip. I had a feeling that he was a friend of yours.
I've been trained by other interviewers not to look at the comments too much because they say it's going to distract you. But as long as I do try to look over there occasionally. Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, like we were saying, I think that's a really, really good avenue or a really good opportunity to maybe have a sighting as floating down a river.
Yeah.
Because chances are they're making a lot of noise and they're not going to hear you. And go ahead.
Well, I would say we were, now there is a lot of people on Billy's Lake during certain times of the year. This would have been summertime. You'll see that they have small, the size, the boat size limit's very small, like a bateau with like a 5 horsepower, about the most they'll let on there. So there's some motorboaters, some serious fishermen out there. There's people canoeing, but usually once you get into those tributaries, it really thins out in terms of people. They mostly stay in the lake area, except for the hardcore fishermen who know where those honey holes are,
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to the Patterson Gimlin film. I've got a theory on how they were able to get so close. A lot of people will question that video because no one's been able to get that close to a Bigfoot without, startling it. And I've got a theory.
I'd love to hear.
as to why that happened. I mean, these guys were on horses. They had been up there for a week, hadn't bathed. You know, they're smelling pretty rank, I'm sure, and they're sitting on these horses, and I'm sure Bigfoot has smelled horses before. So what I think happened was Patty hears these horses coming, and she thinks, wow, there shouldn't be any horses up here. So she's going to investigate why there's horses coming, and then at the last second, oh, crap, there's men on these horses. So she turns around and books it out of there. And had no idea, couldn't smell the men, didn't hear them probably. So it's kind of like that.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And to me, here's the thing. Like you mentioned, people question it. I went back and forth on Patty for a long time. I am 100% convinced now she is the video proof of their existence, even though science wouldn't accept it, and for various reasons. But the way I tell people when I'm talking to somebody who's not that up on the subject is imagine that these things are literally the forest ninjas, okay? And it is imperative that they know what we're doing at all times. But they're going to make a mistake, but it's going to be really rare, and they'll make a mistake.
Absolutely.
Everybody makes mistakes, but that's one of those things. When somebody tries to bring up his reputation and all that, I'm like, the film is what you need to be looking at. And it's been proven, like the body proportions, it's not just the body size and the bulk underneath that suit, it's the body proportions are not our proportions. You can't fake that in a suit. Even Hollywood's best and brightest will say, the only thing we do is arm extensions, but we can't do anything else. What if the forearm needs to be shorter compared to the upper arm, et cetera, et cetera? And the proportions on that animal, I think it was Thinker Thunker. I know a lot of people, he seems to say everything is Bigfoot, and I understand that argument.
I love Thinker Thunker. I think he does an awesome job.
And he put Bob Hieronymus. He changed the proportions to Patty's proportions. Because when you're looking at Patty, everybody's just like, well, you see in this hair covered thing, and you're like, it's a man in a suit. But when you look at Bob Hieronymus and then you change his proportions to Patty's proportions, and he's in clothes, it looks freakish. It was an excellent thing for him to think to do.
I would say Hieronymus.
Huh?
Who's Bob Hieronymus?
He's the one that claims he was paid to get in the suit.
I thought so.
He did the walk and all that. I'm like, no, that's not. You know.
What was you gonna say, buddy?
I think the best movie that would probably come close enough as looking at a possible natural Bigfoot would be, which he's on our promo that comes up on the thing, is Harry and the Hendersons.
Oh,
I mean, that thing that I could picture that in the woods, big time.
Yeah, and that was like 88.
Yeah.
You know, the best part of that movie is the end when they're all standing there mimicking like half broken trees and then just walk off. I'm like, that's the kind of ability they have.
Yeah.
Without question, you know?
It makes you question if people say that the Harry and the Hendersons Bigfoot looks like what they've seen out there, it makes you question how Hollywood knew that.
Well, that's true. That's true. And it's interesting that during the filming of Star Wars, when they were doing some of that stuff up in the upper Northwest, they literally put signs out for hunters to not shoot at anything that they had a man in a costume, Chewbacca, and they didn't want them mistaking him for a Bigfoot. I mean, that was actually a real thing that they had made clear to anybody in that area. If you see an upright, thing that's clearly not a bear, don't shoot at it. It's probably this guy in the suit, So once again, that crew, I'm not saying that Chewbacca, who knows? There's the footage from Tennessee, whether it's real or not, I don't know, but what's the name of that? They gave her a name. It's a female, and she looks like Chewbacca. She's got the underbody.
You're talking about another one I haven't seen, and I pride myself on seeing.
It's part of the Erickson project when they were up. It might be Kentucky, but Erickson was supposed to come out, supposedly contributed to the DNA study that's, of course, hotly debated. Matilda. They call her Matilda. Pull up Matilda later.
I didn't know that was from Tennessee.
Well, it's either Tennessee or Kentucky. I'm not sure, but wherever that property was that Erickson guy was at, he bought the property, I think, because it was known to be habituated. and
Now,
Matilda.
what's the story behind Matilda? Because
I
I
don't
always
know.
thought that was a hoax.
Well, it could be. It looks like a easily could be.
I mean, my whole thing is if I think it, and I shouldn't be this way. I really shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't.
It goes against everything I say on here that if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. But
there's a yes and no there because you have the back and forth. Either it doesn't look good enough or it looks too good. That's why I want you to look at that picture, the Melissa Hobie picture. I'll get it sent to you. She didn't take the picture, but for some reason she wound up having the rights to it. It's probably a hoax. The reason I say this is because, as I said earlier, being forest ninjas, the way I call them, you're not likely going to get a photo op with this thing so close that you can get it clear.
mm-hmm.
You're always like several steps ahead of people, and they're blurry because they're off in the distance. Even with high-tech cameras, you're not getting close enough. And I watched a thing that Rocky Mountain Sasquatch organization posted today from a highway camera in Washington State. And it is interesting. It's, you know how they have those crossovers that go over the highway for nature, for deer and stuff to cross? It's supposedly on one of those, and this thing's just walking across. It looks really intriguing, but once again, it's too far away to really know. You know, we would need somebody like Finger Thunker to analyze it, enhance it, and bring it out and see what the gate looks like. You know, usually that's the case. I'm sure there's a lot of legitimate footage out there that unfortunately is 200 or 300 yards away or more, and it's just hard to know.
I mean, and the pictures are blurry because by the time it registers in your head, okay, get my camera out and take a picture. These things are moving.
Yes, exactly.
But try to take a picture of somebody running and see if it's blurry.
Exactly. So, like when I had my sighting in the Okefenokee, obviously I didn't have an iPhone back in '96 to begin with. But if I did, even if I had thought to get out of my shop to grab my camera, I'd been fumbling for it. You know, the classic, oh, you're making it shaky on purpose. No, we're freaking out, trying to get everything operated quickly before this thing moves away, you know?
Right.
So, yeah. It's there's so many reasons why it's going to be hard. And this animal, I personally believe that anytime you enter the woods and you're in an area where they are, and that brings to mind something else, but we'll get to that later, they're aware of you pretty quickly once you're in the woods. And I'm not going to speculate on how I know they have the potential to be dangerous. I also know they have the potential to be playful and or just curious, but they know we're dangerous. mean, they know that. We might not have the physical abilities they have, but we're dangerous for all of our own reasons.
Absolutely.
You know? So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, we've been talking all this time, and we haven't even brought up the encounter that we kind of based the show around.
Okay.
You were in an area not real far from either of us, closer to Walls than me, but years ago I used to run a pest control route.
Oh, you're telling me that, yeah.
I lived in Georgia, and I had like I said, a pest control route. I did pest control and termite monitoring, and I was in charge of sales and stuff over in the Blue Ridge area. And I would have to cross from Dalton, Georgia into LJ. I'd have to cross Fort Mountain. There's no way of getting there. Either you can go around it or you go over it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'd go over it because it's such a beautiful drive.
Oh, it is.
But one of my customers was on the top of Fort Mountain, and they were called Wilderness View Cabins.
That's it.
And you rented a cabin in one of those from a cabin from one of those guys.
That's right.
And tell us about what happened that night. It was you and your wife, correct?
Yeah, well, we were there with my son. At that time, the boy you just saw, Elliot, he's only about 2.
Okay.
And my dog, Douglas. Douglas is, if you kind of combined a bird dog with a Australian Shepherd, that's what he looked like. You know, and I didn't use him for hunting or anything, but he automatically pointed and chased deer. He loves the woods, and there's a reason I'm bringing that up. So we had already been there in 2014, and because of my experiences in that area in 2014, I said, let's go back up there. So we actually went up there to get away from a hurricane that had messed up Savannah, and the power was out, and we were like, let's just go. Actually, I think it was a tropical storm. Let's just go back up to Wilderness View and get out of this mess till the power's back on. We get up there. I'd already made, my reservations with the cabin. We get up into LJ, and I call the woman, and she says, can you take a different cabin? Because it turns out the storm that y'all had moved through here and washed out that road at that cabin y'all got the last time, which I was kind of thankful for, because this was a narrow dirt road with no guardrail, a huge drop off, and just, I'm pretty neurotic about narrow dirt roads on the mountains anymore. So this time around, she said, we've got another cabin. It's bigger. It's called Black Bear Cabin. Is that okay with you? And I said, sure, we'll take what we can get. When we get to Black Bear Cabin, I am in heaven immediately, because this cabin is on a cul-de-sac. There are no other cabins on the cul-de-sac, no houses. And instead of having other cabins around you, the backyard is the Coahuila Wilderness going all the way up through Georgia and on into Tennessee. I don't know if they call it Coahuila past Tennessee, but I mean, sure, there might be a dirt road here and there. And there's Lake Conasuego, which we did go up to. So I was like, this is perfect. We've got the woods to ourselves. There's no walking trails. The other houses that are on the road coming down to this are mostly mansions that are for sale and nobody is in them. So I knew we had the whole place to ourselves. Hey, Jim. Jimbo is my long-term friend from high school. He and I have been buddies forever. I'm glad to see he's on here. Yeah, that's great. So we didn't get there till nighttime. It was a long drive going down to the backyard of the cabin. And so we went down to the bottom, and then I decided I would load all the luggage through the back steps going up to the back door while Stacy got Elliot situated inside. Immediately loading the luggage into that back steps. And this could just be my brain, but I had the feeling of being watched. The wood line is only 20 feet away from the porch. And I'm like trying to get the luggage in and get inside and get situated. So the very next morning, what I did was I went out to that back area to look for anything interesting, which I found immediately. I found a tree right in the wood line that had a massive branch wedged up in it. That was not a branch from that tree, and it was bigger than any branch from any tree, even around that tree. So I mean, it's like, okay, that's interesting. And what I did was, I know y'all will try to keep this tight, so I'll try to be concise. I made a glyph on the ground, about 20 feet inside the wood line. It's a triangle. Each branch was about a foot long. And then I took a snail shell that I found and put it in dead center of the triangle with the whole side down. And then I made what would look like an equal sign with the top bar straddling the top of the snail shell and the bottom bar straddling the bottom of the snail shell and going across the triangle, if you can get that image in your mind. And then I went back, hung out. We, just kind of had a day in the cabin, hanging out with our son, having a good time. And nothing that first day that we didn't go out anywhere. We didn't go into Fort Mountain State Park. We just kind of wanted to chill out. So the next day I get up and I go to check the glyph. And I've had a lot of this over the years, just to let you know, in terms of glyph alterations. But nothing had happened to the glyph. It was still the way it was. And then sometime in the early afternoon, I took Douglas out for a walk to get him to do his business. So I went up the road a little bit, and immediately Douglas starts looking down into this ravine with this intense look on his face. And I a lot of times try to just go with my gut on these things. So I found a large pine branch that was still pretty solid, and I did a knock on a tree. And it was a pretty loud knock, and it definitely echoed down through the ravine. And it wasn't even 30 seconds where I got 3 knocks back. And I mean, whereas mine sounded like a good baseball pop fly, you know, this sounded like a tree hitting a tree. And it was coming from down in the ravine. So I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, I didn't expect that. I really didn't expect anything. So I did one more tree knock. I got 3 back again. 3. There's this thing about 3. It's really interesting. So then what I do, and a lot of people think I'm nuts, is I start talking to the woods. I'm like, I'm just letting you know if you're actually there and you somehow understand English, which might be ridiculous. I am not in any way here to bring harm upon you or to exploit you. I'm just curious about you. I want to learn more. I mean, I just go gently, you know what I mean? And then I walked off and I said, well, if you're really there, if you'll give me one more sign before I go. And I started walking back to the road to the cabin. And about 20 seconds later, just a lone loud knock. And this one wasn't as powerful, but it was still really loud. And I was like, wow. So the thing is, from that point forward, I think I initiated something that I didn't expect. And so that night we are watching TV and I'm cooking dinner. I'm working the grill, which is on the back porch. Of course, I'm looking into that wood line, but it's dark, you know. I get dinner ready. We get inside, and all of a sudden, now you have to get an idea of this cabin. It is definitely obviously in the woods, but they have clear cut trees. There's no overhanging trees over this cabin at all. None at all. There's not even a possibility of a branch being able to drop on the roof. Bam! Something smacks the wall of the cabin. Even my wife, who's not near as into the subject as I am, like, what the hell was that? Like, I don't know. I can't tell you. And then it happened again, like about 15 minutes later. Wasn't constant, wasn't like rapid fire, but it happened probably 4 times that night. I would go out the back door. There was, you know, some lights on the yard, nothing, couldn't see anything. So that happened. Well, before I get to that, I had to go out. I was a little nervous about it after these smacks on the cabin, but I went out the front door, meaning the door towards the cul-de-sac, to take Douglas out. Now, remember, Douglas is an outside dog. He loves the woods. He loves to chase animals, dig up ground moles, all that stuff. I got him on his leash, and I go to pull him out the door, and the dog is looking at me like, please don't do this to me. I don't want to go out. He is pulling on me, and he won't go outside. I've never in my life ever had him do that. I was like, I don't want him wetting the floor. I don't want to pay any kind of cleaning fee. So I hated to do it. I started kind of dragging him down the steps of the porch and out, you know, in towards the woods. And he just kept pulling. And I never could get him to do his business. And he went back inside. That happened every single night from that point forward. I think we're there 4 or 5 nights. The smacking of the cabin happened every single night. So the next morning after that first night of the smacking of the cabin, I went back into the woods and checked the glyph I'd made. So if you recall, the snail shell is in the dead center in the pyramid. And the equal sign, which was straddling both the top and the bottom, well, now the snail shell was in the very top of the pyramid with the hole turned upwards. And the equal sign was still perfect as an equal sign, but in the very bottom of the pyramid. And I looked at this and I took pictures, of course, and I'm like, I'm trying to imagine if a raccoon could walk over this thing and somehow not disturb the pyramid at all, make the equal sign lower itself, but still remain an equal sign, and put that snail shell in the capstone. I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see a possum, a bear, or so Stacy and I started making glyphs on the road, the cul-de-sac. And so the next day we went for a walk with Elliot and Douglas down the road to an area we had seen earlier where it was like they started to develop a house, but you could clearly see they'd abandoned the project. But we made this little stick glyph right by the edge of the road at the cul-de-sac by our cabin. And then we went on our walk and we went downhill near the ravine where the tree knocks were coming on. That's this same area. This is the same area where the tree knocks were coming from. You had to go down into the ravine. There were these massive iron gates, like this person was going to build a mansion, and they stopped. And anyway, we go in there, and Elliot the night before had been watching, I think, a kid's movie called Ice Age. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That guy had the TV series narrated the elephants, the mammoth's voice.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Well, Elliot was real little. Remember, he's not even quite 2, and he's a little caveman baby at some point in the movie. And I'm like, look, Elliot, it's a baby, and this thing's got fur all over it. I don't know if this is significant or not, but I'm bringing it up because it seemed that way. We go down this property, through those gates, down this dirt road where they never even got to construction. We're surrounded by forest above us, and Elliot points to the woods and he goes, baby. And I'm like, he's slung around my back. I've got this thing. And I was like, baby? What do you mean, baby? Are you looking at a baby? And he doesn't articulate, but he just keeps pointing and saying baby. And we're looking up in the woods, and Stacey and I aren't seeing jack shit. So I don't know what that was about. But the next coolest thing that happened there was we came up on an area right in the dirt road. Did I send you that picture of the drag marks in the road?
I don't think so.
God, I should have sent you more pics. I had so many pics. But there was an area where these bees were coming out of the ground, and they were highly disturbed, like they had just been disturbed before we got there. And there is what looks like finger marks pulling through the nectar across the road. There are no nails. Bears cannot retract their claws. So usually when you see a bear track, especially if it's going to claw the ground, you're going to see the fingerprint and the more narrow nail print in there. There are no claw prints. It's just like a giant hand that's probably each finger is about twice as wide as mine, pulling back. And the bees are still disturbed when we're there. I'll dig those pics up and send them to you. It's a weird nectar. It's kind of gray looking. Like it doesn't look like honey, but it's definitely part of their nest. So we disturbed something, obviously, because the bees were still agitated when we came up on this. So that's, I know we're getting to the end here. That's
you're good, man. We can go over an hour.
Yeah. We did go into Fort Mountain State Park, but my previous journey is the one, I know I sent you the video of the foot tracks all in the mud. And we went to Lake Conasuega, and I got foot tracks up there. I'm just telling y'all, that area, Fort Mountain, LJ, Blue Ridge, is so active. I mean, honestly, really all of North Georgia mountains and Tennessee and North Carolina, West Virginia. And that's the thing I wanted to bring up. I don't know what your opinion is. I'm going to throw out an opinionated thing here for real quick with you. I just watched the newest video put out by Small Town Monsters, and these guys go up into Utah. It's not Seth Breedlove, but it's his partner. I don't know if you're familiar with that film crew.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Small Town Monsters.
He just released another, his partner just released another video where they go up, and I'm not even finished with it yet. I was watching before I got on tonight, where they go into Utah, into the Uinta Mountains. The first night they get to their spot, massive tree knocks. I mean, unambiguous tree knocks. Like, and that's the thing I'll say about tree knocks. We all know what it sounds like when a dead branch falls and hits the ground, or even a tree. And I've had a tree pushed over near me, and I think it was pushed over. But we know what it sounds like to have a tree fall and hit the ground. But a tree knock, the sound of a hard piece of wood hitting another piece of wood, that doesn't happen with a branch just falling, or rarely could. And a moose couldn't do it. These guys were getting stuff immediately. And the reason I bring this up is they just got there to their destination. If Jeff Meldrum were correct, and there are only between 6,000 and 10,000 of these things between Canada, the United States, and parts of Mexico, if I can go to the mountains, and every single time I go to the mountains, I have interactions and find evidence, that's not indicative of 6,000 to 10,000 beings over the course of all of North America. You know, I don't know. I can't speculate on the numbers, but I've done a lot of thinking about this, and like, that's just not realistic at all. They have to be more numerous. Their diet is going to be even more varied than a bear. Bear do eat berries, and they eat fish and other stuff. But I think these things, and I'm speculating, they probably will make use of fish, like you said, frogs, bark, berries, acorns, grubs, crawfish. I've just recently listened to a story where this woman literally walked up on one that had a bunch of crawfish up on a rock in the creek. So because of their varied diet, they have the ability to be more numerous than something like a bear, or a mountain lion, which is really specifically just certain prey species. And of course, they eat deer and hog, and I just think the numbers have to be way more than what certain people like Jeff Meldrum are, because we wouldn't be having this many interactions. If there were only 6,000 in the whole of the United States, how many could there be in the state of Georgia? Like, let's say there's 100 in the state of Georgia, and Georgia has 156 counties, so that's not even one per county. What's the odds I'm going to ever bump into anything if there's one on average per county, even if that's not the actual distribution? What are your thoughts on that?
I really don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough question, and I'm not saying I know. There's no way for me to know what the numbers are. Mm-hmm. But I look, my son has been to the mountains more time in his 6 years, and they're here too, where I am. But what's interesting about here is I find tons of tree and stick structure stuff in my research areas here, but they're more subtle here. They do not do vocalizations. I've never heard of vocalization. I've only recently heard some tree knocks, interestingly, and I have to say possible tree knocks. But they're way more subtle. And in Florida, that was the case. I found a lot of tree stuff. But I didn't never hear vocalizations, and I never heard tree knocks. Now, I know people do get tree knocks down there, but I just think they're more subtle here. Maybe in the mountains they're more bold because they have more areas to hide and tuck into, so they can be a little more bold, knowing they're not just on a flat surface trying to steer clear of us. So I think I got away from my original point. Was my son has been up in the mountains more times than I'd only been in the mountains once by the time I was 6, I think. But every single trip I've gone up there, whether it's a camping trip or gone up to a cabin, I've found foot tracks, I've found stick structures, I've found massive overturned rocks where it could be a bear turning a piece of granite that big over, but would a bear be so careful that this thing, like these rocks were overturned perfectly so you could still see the square where they were sitting? I would think a bear would just push the thing out of the way if it's looking for bugs or something. These things are perfectly just flipped over because they were kind of almost amazingly rectangular pieces of granite. This was in Fort Mountain, and it's like something just carefully flipped it over on its other side. And there you can see the indentation where the rock was. I don't think these rocks were big enough. I think raccoons would have a hard time even moving.
Yeah, I was going through mine and your exchange on Facebook, and I didn't see any pictures that you had sent.
Sorry, I'm so scatterbrained, but I will.
Yeah, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure because I like if our guests send pictures, I like to share them. And if it was my fault, I was going to try to get them on here real quick.
Maybe I sent them to your buddy, the guy I'm also in touch with, is it Greg?
Greg, you might have sent them to Greg. Okay.
I think I sent him to Greg, and he's got like the video of the foot tracks that I found that were juvenile tracks of all types in the mud in Fort Mountain. Like I say, they're juvenile. If they're human, they're the most bizarre looking human baby or kid tracks I've ever seen. And I matched them against every other known animal, including beavers and all that. None of that. Sorry for that flickering light, but
no, you're fine.
Yeah, that was right there in Fort Mountain. I found so much stuff in Fort Mountain. Like that is an active area. And there are a shitload of bears. Ooh, excuse me.
You're fine. You're fine. Those words are okay.
There are a lot of bears in Fort Mountain, too, because I came up on them. One came up.
There are a lot of bears.
350-pound bear came up on me and my wife and my dog in 2014. So you're in Tennessee now. He's in Georgia?
Yeah, Walls had some technical issues, had to leave us. I think we're going to finish the show without him. But, yeah, Walls is a Tennessee boy, too. But he moved down to North Georgia when he got married.
Okay. Well, it's all beautiful. Tennessee, North Georgia. I know you're familiar with Scott Carpenter,
mm-hmm.
You know, one of the most amazing things about him to me is that I know he's captured the same being on camera over the span of 10 years at least 3 times.
He's caught some creepy looking stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's that dog man thing.
Something. I mean, he's caught some ugly, ugly things.
Yeah.
Some stuff that if you think, man, how many times have I been in the woods and this thing been behind me? It make you reconsider wanting to go out in the woods, you know?
Well, it really does. And, you know, I've never put much time into the whole dog man thing, but honestly, recently I listened to a podcast on Mysterious Universe about the Wolfman sightings in Yorkshire, England. And it talk about creepy. You know, I don't rule anything out. I don't. Like, and I will say this, the more I've gotten into this subject, like my recent trip up to Saluda, North Carolina, I've done 2 trips up there in the last 2 months I've got a new Zoom recorder, field recorder. I can't deny there's some strangeness going on. Like, I'm not always a woo person. I came into this thing saying it's nuts and bolts. It's it might be a person of some sort, but it's still an animal like we are. I love that name, Mannimal. It's great. But I came in for that angle. But the more I get into it, the more there's some weird stuff happening that I can't really explain. And,
we are primarily a Bigfoot show, but we have done a few Dogman shows. Did one a couple weeks ago, actually, and it was one of our better ones in a long time. That guy had so much knowledge. I think we're gonna try to have him back. He shared some really cool pictures. And you know, when I first started doing this and started hearing about the whole Dogman phenomena, I kind of snickered, you know, thinking it's ridiculous. What else are people going to come up with?
Right.
And the more you look into it, and reputable people are seeing these things, and I first thought that they were seeing a misidentified Bigfoot. You know, people talk about
I thought.
These different types of Bigfoot, you know, 4 or 5 different types. I'm not sure how people know how many types there are. I don't know, but the people say that they do, and I'm not going to doubt them. But I mean, it could be like a top 4 or top 5 or something like that. But people say no, it's not. It's not a Bigfoot. It's a dog that walks like a man.
I will tell you this, and I've had so much difficulty finding this again because I first discovered this about 10 years ago, not looking into any Dogman stuff. To be honest, I don't remember how I came across it. But the reason it has some credibility is because it's 2 Polaroid pictures from the 1960s. These women were in a big field, and they were looking at a bunch of deer off to their left. And then they noticed a wolf to their right stalking the deer. The wolf's to their right and way closer to them than the deer are, but it's moving back towards the deer. The thing stood up on 2 legs completely. Now, I know occasionally a dog might stand on 2 legs to look at something, like they could do that. This didn't look like that. And they got a clear picture of the thing standing up in the deer. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't be fake, but this was long before the age of computers, just like with Patty. There's no, you know, with Patty, you've got 2 choices. It's a man in a suit or it's a Sasquatch. There is no other choice. It's not a misidentification, and it's not a hoax, because there's nothing. And I mean, not a hoax. It's not computer manipulated hoax.
Like a CGI.
Yeah, it's not possible. It's one of 2 things. It's a man in a suit, which to me is absurd. These pictures they blew my mind. I'm like, whoa, what is that? Why does this thing appear to be walking on 2 legs? Now, it didn't look like these descriptions where they almost look Bigfoot-like with a big head or a dog head. It looked like a wolf that somehow was managing to move on 2 legs, but it was still huge and freaky looking. So who knows? That's why I stay open-minded, because, you know, think about it. Like you're saying, I used to laugh about the dog man thing, but you got to realize all the people laughing at us for even thinking about Bigfoot.
Absolutely. You're right. You're right. We're at 1 hour and 10 minutes, and we only got to really cover your one experience up on Four Mountain. I know you've had others, right?
Oh, a lot. Yeah, tons.
Well, what do you think about coming back?
I'd love to come back. I like you. I like this show, and I've enjoyed it so far. And, you know, I as much as I want to share, I like to hear your thoughts and your experiences too.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, well, I'll talk to you after the show, and maybe if not tonight, maybe tomorrow, and we'll get you penciled in for another week. How's that sound?
That sounds great. Well, thank you, Wayne.
All right, but thank you so much for
thank you
taking...
guys for being here. I'm sorry I didn't see and respond to any of these things, but I know you're here, and I appreciate all of you. I appreciate Wayne and the chance to be on this show.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll get you back on. Okay, buddy? You be safe.
Okay, take care. Thank you.
See ya. All right, guys. Another really, really good guest. Like I said, we lost the walls, and I don't think he was able to get back on, but he says good night. Yeah, guys, thanks for hanging out with us, for being respectful to us as always, and to the guests. We really appreciate that, guys. It's not always the case on shows like this. You guys have always been great to us, and we appreciate it. Again, I'm gonna hold this up. Please, guys, pick up a decal. It's our very first one, so I can get the shine out of the way. My buddy from work did these for me, and did a real good job. And like, again, they are $6. Let me do this real quick. You guys, if y'all want to pick one up, you can just email me, mannimalresearch@yahoo.com, or if you just want to go ahead and purchase one, like I said, there's $6, 4 different colors to choose from. Our PayPal is connected to this email, so if you want to send money, your payment by PayPal, just send it, and as long as you're within the 50 states, U.S. states, there won't be any shipping charge. I just stick it in the envelope and mail it to you, but in your PayPal, just include which color you would want: black, white, silver, and gold, and your address. And I will get those out as quickly as possible. And again, all the money that we're not making a lot off of these at $6. The money goes towards to further our research and buy equipment and help pay for our expeditions. So yeah, you can either email me at that email, mannimalresearch@yahoo.com, or like I said, that will get you to our PayPal. If you go to PayPal and send your payment to that email, it'll get to me. Just make sure in the notes you include your address and which color you want. All right, guys. As always, thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with us. Love you guys. Thank you guys so much for everything that you do, for your continued support, and hope that you guys will show us some support by picking up a couple decals as well. Guys, be safe. Take care of each other. Oh, before I forget, I want to wish a very happy birthday to my son, Caden, Mr. Caden Alexander. He turns 9 today. Also, my buddy at work, Mr. Maximilian. I think he's 28 today. So a little bit of an age difference, but they share a birthday. So I want to say happy birthday to those guys. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Y'all be good to each other. Be safe. Take care of each other. And we will see you next week.